Monique and I want to thank one of our sponsors, JD Group Logistics, trusted by global companies to move trade efficiently, compliantly, and reliably across borders. Learn more at www.jdgroup.net.
The Mexican dream really is Tijuana in a lot of ways. If you want to come here and want to have success, this is a community that's open to that, and you can really thrive. The U.S.-Mexico trade relationship, we continue to be the number one trade partners for each other. $90 billion of trade just in Cali-Baja region. U.S.-Mexico trade overall was over $940 billion last year. We've seen a dramatic reduction in terms of illegal immigration, but also, I think, better coordination and communication. We share common problems, and those common problems can only be resolved with our common solution working together.
The idea of doing this podcast is that not everybody has to live at the border to be a border master.
Olas Media presents Border Masters, the podcast where the U.S.-Mexico border takes center stage.
Gustavo is from Nogales. He has amazing credentials. So he's super knowledgeable of everything border, but we come from very different borders.
Monique is very good on the emotional intelligence. It's the personality that she has that allows people just to feel relaxed. It's part of letting the world know why has it been so successful to have that border and what has inspired them about the border.
Now here are your hosts, Gustavo and Monique.
Welcome to Border Masters. Today, we're honored to speak with Christopher Teal, U.S. Consul General in Tijuana, a career diplomat with over 25 years of experience in diplomacy, public affairs, and cross-border engagement. From visa services to migration, from trade under USMCA to the cultural life of the Cali-Baja region, Chris has a front row seat to one of the most dynamic bilateral relationships in the world. He has served as Consul General in Nogales, Sonora, a public affairs officer at the U.S. Embassy in Sri Lanka, in Guadalajara, and in senior leadership roles in Washington, D.C., including at the State Department's Bureau of Global Talent Management. Chris was the director of the State Department's Career Development and Assignments Mid-Level Division. He led a 35-member team in charge of global diplomatic assignments of mid-level foreign service officers, some 9,000 officials in total.
Wow.
Today, we'll unpack what really happens at the border beyond the headlines, what's working, what's changing, and what it means for the millions of people who live, work, and move across this shared region. So let's dive in. Consul General Chris, I met you shortly after you arrived in Tijuana and was struck. One of the things that struck me was that you had previously served as Consul General in Nogales, which is my hometown.
That's right.
And since then, we've crossed paths at many binational events, mostly in San Diego. So Monique, how do you know Chris? How do you know the consul?
I know him because you're in all my social media, Chris. Like Consul General, you're like so active. I was actually just asking him, like, how long have you been in this role? Like, he's like, a year and a half. I'm like, what? It feels like forever. And I love that you're so out there in the community. I also love that you were in Nogales.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that you have that in common. But actually, I first met you in person, I think at one of the Smart Border Coalition.
I think it was at Smart Border, and that's one of the many examples we've got here along the border of these great binational working groups. And so it's my role to be present at all those, to engage with all these groups. And so that's probably why you see me a lot, whether it's in San Diego, Tijuana, Mexicali, Calexico, wherever it is, we're trying to always be present because this is a unique, dynamic border region. And it's just a fantastic place to be. So for me, it's been a great pleasure to be here.
And I love it. Also, what I was going to say is that you actually came to me at the Smart Border Coalition meeting, like with your big smile, like very open and embracing, like you said, like the cultures and all that our community embraces, right? And also your Spanish is amazing. So
well, I always am going to have my gringo accent, so I'm probably never going to lose that. Although, living in Sonora, and I lived in Guadalajara as well earlier in my diplomatic career, so I've spent a lot of Now, over a quarter of a century, I've spent a lot of time working in Mexico. And a big part of the reason I've spent a lot of my career, and a lot of us who are diplomats that work in kind of Western Hemisphere issues, do tend to spend a lot of time in Mexico, because it is the most important bilateral relationship we have.
Yes.
And you see that for a number of reasons. You name quite a few, whether it's the immigration, security, trade issues, or simply the people-to-people work that we do all the time across the border. And Sonora, Arizona region is an incredible dynamic region. Here between California and Baja, the Cali-Baja region is another. It's on steroids. It's
It's unbelievable.
two of the largest cities on the border, and so you really get that transaction, that back and forth every day that we enjoy.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And let me start from the beginning. How did you decide diplomacy was your thing? What got you into this?
It's interesting. I'm originally from a little town south of Chicago, Pontiac, Illinois. So not very international, not like, being in DC or New York or Boston or LA. But I was always interested in kind of that wider world. And I think that's when I began to, as I grew up, began to think about studies, university, and thinking about international relations. And the very first country I went to outside the United States was, in fact, Mexico. And this was, 40 years ago, probably. And I went to a little sleepy border town at the time called Matamoros. Matamoros was a very different city than it is now, obviously, at the time, but it was just fascinating to me. And, I thought, I really do want to kind of learn Spanish and begin to study. Entonces, como un estudiante, empecé a estudiar, más o menos, sigo estudiando. But the goal was really, I thought, I don't know how I want to work internationally, but I thought there were lots of different ways to contribute. And I went to George Washington University in DC to study for my master's degree. And that's where I really became connected with kind of a lot of people who work on foreign policy in particular. And that led to a State Department very soon thereafter. So here I am, quarter century más tarde, kind of working in this area, and really just a great pleasure to be here working in Cali-Baja. This is just a fantastic community.
Well, thank you so much for talking so highly about our country, both our countries, right? And embracing the language as well. But I want to understand a little better. And for our audience as well, could you step back and explain the role of a consul general? And specifically, what are the priorities for the U.S. consulate in a border city like Tijuana?
Yeah, so a lot of people who don't work in diplomacy, maybe don't understand what we've got. Obviously, our State Department is the oldest cabinet agency in the U.S. government. And so our diplomatic presence is done through embassies, which are in capital cities at countries around the world. So I worked at embassies in different countries, in Peru, República Dominicana, and Sri Lanka, for example. But Mexico is unique, like with so many things. So we've got this brand new, huge embassy in Mexico City. And so we just opened that late last year. And in addition to the embassy in Mexico City, we have 9 consulates all around the country, including 5 on the border. And that's not something we have really in any other country. We don't have that diplomatic presence anywhere else in the world. We might have several consulates in China or India or Canada, but the number and the size of the consulates that we have in Mexico is really unique, and it's because of that important relationship. So it's about the trade issues, it's about collaboration on security issues, it's about the number of American citizens who live here in Mexico, and we have over 600,000 U.S. citizens that live in Baja, and millions of tourists that come to Baja from the U.S. Obviously, the visa processing for Mexican citizens who are interested in either studying or working or just visiting the United States. And so we do over 1,000 visas every day for Mexican nationals who are interested in coming to the U.S. And so that constant dynamic back and forth, you see it at the San Isidro port of entry. When you look at all the ports of entry in Cali-Baja, I think there's over 200,000 people a day that are going back and forth, right? This is the most heavily transited border in the entire Western Hemisphere. And so our presence at the consulate really is sort of a central hub as part of that to help facilitate that legal transfer of goods, helping travelers go back and forth, dealing with American citizens when they need help on different issues, and really to just be part of the community. So that's kind of our goal, and we're engaged in a lot of cultural activities, educational activities, a whole range of things that that I think hopefully are making a difference here. And really, as you say, we like to be out there and like to be present.
Busy, busy.
Well, when you said 1,000 visas a day, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know if there's any other consulate or even the embassy that actually processes that number of visas, but it's an incredible amount.
I'm going to argue our team is the best in the world. I think number wise, the embassy and some of the other consulates might actually do as much or more than we do, but we certainly have the best team.
Well, you have what, 250 people, something like that?
Yeah, between American and Mexican staff members, and in fact, speaking of visas, we just got a few extra vice consuls that came this year, because of the demand that there is for the World Cup that's going to be coming up later this summer.
Wow.
Right. So we have several new vice consuls here in town that are there to help process those visas. There's a lot of demand on visas, as you can imagine, even in normal time.
Yes.
And with special international events, like the World Cup, there's even more demand. And so we want to be able to be responsive to that demand.
So you were just talking about the uniqueness of, in some ways, the uniqueness of Tijuana and the activity, the level of activity there, which is enormous. What makes this role fundamentally different, being in Tijuana, than other diplomatic roles you've found? I mean, over the years, Monique and I have seen other consuls general arrive, and they coined the term shuttle diplomacy here. Well, we're in Tijuana one day, and then we're in San Diego the other day, and then maybe a number of meetings in each city, and so your whole day can be taken up by meetings in both San Diego and Tijuana. I mean, that's right. Part of the deal, right?
That's right. No, it is unique, and that's where I think, in particular on the border, I saw this in Sonora. You see this along the Texas border with our consulates there. You certainly see it here. You're doing meetings on both sides. Every week at least. I'm on the San Diego side or somewhere in California having meetings, and it's really that subnational diplomacy. And so, in my other job, when I'm working in South Asia or South America, I'm not engaging with the United States on a daily basis in the way I am here. So this is fantastic for us as diplomats to be able to work here and be engaging with our friends and colleagues in California. That relationship with California here is so important for the people of Tijuana, for the people of Baja California. And this really is that subnational diplomacy is a unique thing that we can only, I think, effectively do at the border. And so that requires us to be engaged with communities on both sides of the border. And frankly, there's already that integration, right? There's the integration with economic issues. There's integration with students, schools, going back and forth, studying on both sides of the border. There's families on both sides of the border. So there's the natural ebb and flow that you've got. And so it makes it easy, I think, for us as an institution to engage with state, local, federal officials, but also with the private sector, with civil society and NGOs that are working on both sides of the border. So I think that's where where we can sometimes help people come together that maybe don't know about each other but are working on similar issues, which I really enjoy doing, but also that value added at times when organizations need help or companies need help. What can we do to come in and really support them?
Yeah, I love what you're doing, and it's like truly why we did this podcast, because of this relationship. So I love that you're here. One of the focus that you have is migration. And I know that it's a complex and sensitive topic, but it also deeply affects these regions as there's a lot of fear and misinformation about this issue. From your experience here, what are some of the most common misconceptions, and what does the reality look like on the ground?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting issue, and it's one that I've seen evolve over the course of my career and even over the course of my time here. People want legal migration. The U.S. government advocates for legal migration. There are legal processes. That's why we have, visa process. So it's a myth that you don't want to have people traveling. You want them traveling, but you want to be able to have security, know who they are, ensure that people are using their visa properly, for example. And so I think that's an important thing. In terms of migration with Mexico, it's not just Mexican nationals. Obviously, you've had over the last several years, and I've seen this change over many years. I think back to where I worked in Sonora, 10 years ago. If there were people that were traveling and trying to enter the United States without visas, people that were illegally entering the United States, it was often people from Central America as well that were leaving Central America for various reasons. Sometimes, there were conflicts in Central America or economic reasons people were leaving. When I came to Tijuana a couple of years ago, to start working, the dynamic had changed again. You were seeing a lot of people from Africa and from parts of Asia, Central Asia. And so that dynamic was really changing here in Mexico as well. So people were coming into Mexico. And I think the Mexican government recognized, oh, we have a new dynamic to deal with. This is much more complicated. So really with the change of administration, President Sheinbaum took over. She began to make some changes in terms of immigration issues within the country. And then obviously with our change of administration and how the White House has worked with Mexico City on immigration, we've seen a dramatic reduction in terms of illegal immigration, but also I think better coordination and communication. And so when I think over the course of my career, I don't know that I've ever seen such strong positive communication among various federal agencies on the Mexican government and the US government as I see right now. We have really strong, good communication with Mexican immigration, Mexican military, Mexican law enforcement, with our colleagues, not just us at the consulate, but also with Border Patrol, with CBP, with FBI, with agents that are sometimes based here in California and sometimes based at the consulate. And that strong communication, maybe it doesn't make the news every day. Maybe people aren't thinking about it all the time, but it's prevented a lot of problems. And that's what I think both governments are really dedicated to collaborating, to working together. We share common problems, and those common problems can only be resolved with our common solution working together.
See, this is what we don't hear enough of these exchanges of information. That's been going on for many decades.
Sure.
I know it's not anything new, but as you say, right now probably the communication has been excellent. There's a tremendous amount of information exchange happening. So it's interesting that people actually need to know that and see that. So on another note, when people want to or travel to the consulate to get a visa, I would say almost everybody feels nervous about going to the consulate sometimes to get a visa, right? Now, from your perspective as in a leadership role here, how do you and your team work to bring a more human touch to that visa experience? What advice would you give families to help manage the stress of a consulate visit?
Yeah, sure. No, I think I think there are a lot of myths out there. Oh, you need to have a certain document, or you need to have a certain amount of money in your bank account, and it's really not that complicated, quite honestly. And actually, the vast majority of people who come and apply for visas do receive them here in Mexico, and so. The issue I think that we're asking for, and the vice consuls in particular are asking for, is they want to make sure that you are who you say you are.
Yes.
If you work at a certain place, there's some evidence of that. Where are you going? What are you wanting to do? I want to go to Ross and go shopping, whatever, go to In-N-Out Burger. That's fine. And that's the reality of the border, right? People are going back and forth just to go shopping at times. And so I think that's different from when I think back when I worked in Guadalajara. You can't just pop back and forth across the border in the way you can here. But it's really to show, okay, I'm going to the States, but there's a reason to come back to Mexico, no? So you have a job, you have family, et cetera. So you're showing those ties back to your home country. And so I think people are looking to see that is demonstrated by applicants. So people shouldn't be afraid. They should just come, tell the truth. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a certain type of job. I think just that willingness to be able to explain. And I've been very clear with the team. I want everyone to be able to get quick service, to have un trato digno. No, I think everyone who comes up deserves, I think, good service. I always think about the Maya Angelou quote when I think about people who might come to the consulate. And she famously said, people will forget what you did and what you said, but they'll always remember how they make you feel. And so I think even if you come in and maybe you don't get the visa this time, you can still treat somebody well. And explain, okay, well, you didn't qualify this time for a visa, you can come back later. Maybe we need to see you working a little more time at a particular job, or, when you finish school, you can come back and reapply. And so I think that's the important thing for people to keep in mind. But clearly the demand hasn't gone away. So that's a good thing. We like to see that. We like to see people coming, going shopping in the United States and supporting that binational economy.
But that's also something that I learned when we had, remember when we had Jan Bejar, who's a lawyer,
Yes.
and we were talking about this legal migration situation, and something that I didn't realize, like in this binational region, there's students, there's workers, there's families. So are there different visa categories that they can apply to? Because I have been living, I'm from Tijuana. My mom
Right.
is from Tijuana. We have been here all our lives. And it was like just like one visa, like the tourist visa, even though we were like, we had a bank account here and a PO box and stuff that you cannot have anymore. Now I can have it here because now I'm an American citizen again. But like, what are these visa categories, or how can one be better informed of what is like the consulate will tell you, or you need to come and say, this is what I want?
Right.
I think that's a little, again, misinformation of what visa can you get when you
Sure.
live in a region like this.
Right. And this is true around the world, but it's especially true here. As you point out, there's a lot of students that may be crossing back and forth daily, or workers that are crossing back and forth. And so, yes, those are different types of visa.
Vamos a una pequeña pausa. Estás escuchando Border Masters. Regresamos en un momento.
Today, we're proud to recognize JD Group, a leader in international logistics and customs brokerage, celebrating 30 years of excellence. With a strong binational presence across the United States and Mexico, JD Group operates at key border and logistics hubs, delivering seamless end-to-end supply chain solutions. From U.S. and Mexico customs brokerage to freight forwarding, cross-dock operations, 3PL warehousing, e-commerce fulfillment, and real-time shipment visibility, JD Group helps keep cross-border trade moving. Trusted by manufacturers, distributors, and global brands, JD Group supports hundreds of thousands of successful operations every year with efficiency, compliance, and reliability. After 30 years, JD Group remains focused on innovation and long-term partnerships across North America. Learn more at www.jdgroup.net. We'd like to thank Sentry, a San Diego-based real estate investment firm deeply committed to cross-border collaboration and stewardship, for supporting conversations like Border Masters, highlighting why the San Diego-Tijuana region is stronger when we work together. Founded in 1989 and headquartered in San Diego, Sentry is a real estate investment management firm with experience across industrial, office, retail, and multifamily properties throughout the Western United States. Sentry, spelled S-E-N-T-R-E, stands for Stewards and Entrepreneurs of Real Estate, reflecting a thoughtful entrepreneurial approach to reimagining real estate for good. Beyond the border, Sentry co-founded Vesta, a publicly traded industrial real estate company headquartered in Mexico City, with a portfolio of more than 40 million square feet, supporting global supply chains across Mexico. Sentry believes real estate connects economies, communities, and people, which is why they're proud to support conversations like Border Masters, focused on collaboration, shared growth, and the future of the San Diego-Tijuana region. Learn more at Sentry.com. We want to thank the South County Economic Development Council for being our ally. They create partnerships for a vibrant South County. Together with their community and business partners, South County EDC is creating opportunity, enhancing quality of life, and helping residents and businesses thrive across a dynamic binational region.
Border Masters está de regreso. Volvamos con Gustavo y Monique.
So the normal people who might be going shopping or traveling or visiting family, they would be going on a tourist visa, as it's known, sort of a B1, B2 visas, that category. And that's the vast majority of the ones we process. We do process a lot of student visas, which typically are F visas. So you'd have to apply specifically for those. You need to show that you're enrolled in schools, and there's some forms that you might get from the schools to indicate acceptance, et cetera. And so that's a slightly separate process. But in terms of coming into the consulate, doing a quick interview and getting your visa, that is the same. We have a lot of work visas too. We process a lot of a category known as H visas, which are workers that are there's many types of H visas, but we see the most of those that are maybe going to work in agricultural industries. And so we process, I think after Monterrey, we have maybe the second highest number of H visas that we process. So that's tens of thousands of those that we process every year. And those often will fluctuate with with the course of the harvesting season or planting season, et cetera. And so, and that's a great category. We see people that come back year after year after year, and we really need labor in those areas in the United States. And so it really provides a big support for U.S. companies and U.S. consumers at the end of the day. And it's another great program. So again, many categories of work visas, many categories of investor visas, many categories of other types of visas we have, for, I don't know, football players, for baseball players, that's separate categories that might apply for them. But I think the vast majority of people, when they're thinking it's a tourist visa, it's a B1, B2 visa, and that's a pretty straightforward process. Our wait time is a few weeks, but if people need emergency, they need to travel really quickly for something, we can always adjust for those as well.
Good to know. And I
Right.
think we were talking about his unique position, right, as a consulate general in like this area of how do you report everything you see
Mm,
and that you is so ingrained in you because you have been in many border cities back to Washington.
Sure.
Sometimes we feel like you have been in the Smart Border Coalition, Gustavo, and we have been lobbying and all of and what I understand that it is very difficult to translate with someone that is so far away and sometimes they do not understand and they are the ones that make the decisions.
Right.
How do you translate those issues with the reality and not their perception?
No, I think our role is very important. One, we're literally the face of the American people, right? So we represent the American people, and we represent the U.S. government. So we have that clear mandate. But you're right, we do have a role, I think, in terms of translating back to either Washington or to the embassy in Mexico City, so that our colleagues maybe at the embassy can help work with Mexican government officials or Mexican institutions there in the capital as well. So it's really a two-way street of us helping, I think, interpret sometimes what's going on, because the border is different, right?
Yes.
It's not Mexico City. It's not Washington. It's not other parts of either of our country. And so sometimes that's misunderstood. I think there are some issues where we can help translate kind of the uniqueness that we have, so the fact that we've got cross-border wastewater issues to work on, environmental issues that we need to make progress on. And we've been able to make some tremendous progress in the last couple of years. And that's been because of our ability to really help the lobby that goes on in Mexico City and in Washington to understand why it's so important that the Rio Tijuana is not polluted, and so that people in Playas de Tijuana and Imperial Beach have clean beaches. Both sides of the border deserve that. And so there are lots of problems we can't fix. We can fix this problem. And so it requires some funding, it requires some coordination. And that's another area where we've seen just fantastic work over the last couple of years dealing with what's really been kind of an environmental crisis. And it's not going to be fixed overnight, but wow, we've made a lot of progress on it. And there's a path forward and new infrastructure that's being put in place.
Wow.
And so again, not always in the headlines, but
No.
the progress is real and it's there, and our communities are going to be stronger as a result.
And we were just talking about exchanges, information exchanges, right, between the countries. And you mentioned environmental, and that's a huge concern in this region, the Cali-Baja region. When it comes to prevention, public safety issues, there's been a lot of exchange there as well. Now, in general terms, how does that work? That exchange with between Mexico and the United States, and how and what is the role of the consulate here?
Yeah, sometimes we play a convening role, and so we can literally bring people together that might be either Mexican federal officials, state officials, or local law enforcement. We coordinate in terms of information sharing all the time. So let's say there's a wanted fugitive who's escaped from California, who's wandering around here and is hiding in Rosarito. So if we're able to coordinate with local law enforcement and track this person down and have them go back to the United States to face charges, we do the same on the U.S. side as well. If there's a Mexican national who's escaped into the U.S. and we can track him down and bring him back for justice here, we do those so both communities could be safe and secure. Coordinating on, I think, so that's a simple kind of program in some ways. Coordinating on anti-cartel issues, anti-terrorist issues is a much more complicated one, much more, I think, systemic one that we have to work on. But again, it's an area where we've seen a lot of progress, and so this has been a focus. President Sheinbaum has has really put additional support in terms of federal presence here in Baja California. So coordinating with maybe some new agencies, new officials, greater number of them has been one of the issues. But seeing how we can make sure there isn't misunderstanding, that there isn't miscommunication, and so that we're all working toward that same goal of making communities really on both sides of the border safer. But it's not just about the public security when you think of the cartels. It's, obviously part of their income is selling illegal drugs, and particularly destructive ones like fentanyl, which obviously has had a very negative impact in many cities, but it's had a negative impact here in Baja California. Hundreds of people died from overdose. And so both communities realize this is a public health issue, it's a security issue, and we can only fix it by working together.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't. Again, some of the misconceptions. I thought like Consul General, okay, visas, cultural events, but then I realized when I was doing some research about all the drug and human trafficking. So and I guess that's an issue that also is very difficult in borders like this. So is the cooperation in the border and with criminal networks also strong? You just said the communication is strong, but do you see now something that gives you confidence and hope that we can do something about these issues that have been in this border for so long, like the cartels, drug issues, human trafficking, horrible issues like those?
Yeah, the human trafficking smuggling issue is another one that's pernicious. It exists all around the world, unfortunately. These are international, often networks that you've got to fight against. So it's not just enough to do it here at the border. Sometimes we have to sanction different organizations that are involved in these. There's money laundering involved. These criminal organizations are able to transfer funds. They traffic vulnerable people in many cases, or individuals sort of fall for these ideas of, oh, we can get you somewhere, just pay us sometimes up to $20,000 when they're trying to smuggle. It's absurd, the sort of risks people put themselves at as well. And so part of our job is to try to prevent that, to help people, to save lives, to put a dent in some of this work you see with the criminal elements. But, it's constant. We've got to keep at it all the time. Those networks are changing their tactics immediately. And so we've got to sort of stay one step ahead of them all the time. And that requires the communication, the coordination.
Yeah.
And so, again, thinking back across the course of my diplomatic career, it's stronger now than I've really ever seen before in the past. So that gives me hope. That gives me a lot of optimism. But we're at it every day.
Good to hear.
We're going to change some gears here a little bit and move into a conversation about USMCA and sort of the role of Baja California and Southern California in that. From your vantage point, how important is Baja California to the success of USMCA and North American competitiveness? What's most often overlooked here is that, a lot of policymakers overlook this. It's about how the border infrastructure affects trade, affects security, daily life in border communities. And so all of a sudden we're at the epicenter of, okay, here's USMCA. It's going to be revised. It's going to be changed. We don't know yet exactly how it's going to turn out. But we do know that border cities like Tijuana, San Diego have a huge role to play. But so what is your vantage point a little bit on Baja California, and in particular Baja California's role in this?
I think the USMCA review that's happening this year and scheduled to conclude later this summer, I think there were a lot of questions kind of over the course of last year. A lot of one of the words I used a lot in Espanol, incertidumbre, a lot of uncertainty. How is this going with tariff issues that were sometimes changing, negotiations that were ongoing? I will say there's really strong engagement by the Mexican government in terms of what Washington's expectations are. And yes, it's about trade, but it's also about security issues. It's about coordinating on all these other things that aren't strictly just economic. So that's been an important shift as well. But you're right, Cali-Baja is uniquely integrated. San Diego, Tijuana, uniquely integrated economies. We see, parts that might go back and forth. We're seeing reshoring, nearshoring, and areas like microchips. That's been an important, I think, one lesson we learned out of COVID is we've got to make sure North America as a supply chain is protected. And so that's been kind of shifting. And so I think the negotiations, the discussions are off to a good start. We have high expectations of that. But in spite of all kind of uncertainty that you saw internationally, the U.S.-Mexico trade relationship, we continue to be the number one trade partners for each other. And that's true between California and Baja California. There's over $90 billion of trade just in Cali-Baja region. U.S.-Mexico trade overall was over 940 billion last year. So it's actually increasing in spite of a lot of this uncertainty. So sure, there are industries that are maybe waiting and seeing and not investing in certain areas, waiting to get a little more certainty. But overall, it's positive, and overall, I think there's a lot of benefit. One of the things that we've been focused on, that we've had a very receptive audience here, is thinking about this idea of workforce development, right? And so here in Cali-Baja, we have this unique binational system in which we share to some degree a workforce. And how do you really develop the workforce we need for the future? It's done through education. I'm convinced that's really the base of everything we do. And so one of the things that we've been working on through the course of this last year is helping create a consortium, a higher education consortium, the Cali-Baja Higher Education Consortium, which consists of universities in Baja California, universities in San Diego, that can do things and think about education in a different way. So maybe you need a visa, but you don't always need a visa. You can have students studying from Southwestern College in Cetis University in Tijuana. You've got the idea you can transfer credits, have dual degrees that are recognized in both countries. And so the goal out of all of that is really to have the workforce you need for the future that will create the jobs you need, attract further investment, bring people here. And so that's not something that you get a chance to do in other areas. We can do it here, however, on the border, because of that unique subnational diplomacy and that unique binational relationship.
Yeah, I read about that, and I love it. I think it has been going on for a while, because I know I was out of college like for 20 years ago, and even some of my friends did that, right? Like CETIS, SDSU, stuff like that. The part that I see, and I wonder if with this new consortium it will change in any way. The part that I see is, for example, Mexican student. He is in CETIS, let's say, or she is in CETIS, and then they come here. But the funding, the way they need to pay for the studies in the U.S. is much higher than what they normally pay in Mexico. So what I have seen is that they need to stop their studies here in the U.S. So my question for you would be, with this consortium, will that change, or will they, because in Mexico, we do not have this, I will go and take a loan. Normally your parents,
Right.
if you're lucky, pay for university, or you have two jobs and you play like that. But so is this consortium changing that? Or how are you helping some of these cross-border students?
Well, there are a number of differences, I think, and you're right, this is evolving over time. But, for example, Assemblyman David Alvarez created a law that was passed a couple of years ago, AB 91, which allows for people, Mexican citizens and Mexican residents, and sometimes those are dual nationals, sometimes those are American citizens, but they're residing in Tijuana, for example, they can attend Southwestern College as a resident, paying essentially in-state tuition. So it dramatically lowers costs. Community colleges are another good entree anyway into higher education, because you can do your first 2 years of study, greatly reduce cost, and then think about transferring to other universities. But the notion that you could take classes at Southwestern, those credits could transfer to CETIS or UABC, I think are some fundamental changes, the way that we're looking at it. And so as a way to help promote this international exchange of students and professors, we partnered with UABC Autónoma, Universidad Autónoma de Baja California, to open an Education USA Center. And so just December, we launched this new initiative to have this education center to help explain to people residing in Mexico what are the opportunities for exchanges, and to really be a magnet for U.S. universities that want to come here as well. And so it's a two-way street, and it's a way to help universities on both sides of the border. And at the end of the day, help students think about scholarships, think about ways to pay for school that may not always, I had to work a lot during college too. So I'm sympathetic as a poor college kid, but there are scholarships, there are ways to pay for this. And it's important, not just for those individuals, but really it's important, I think, for our community, again, for that workforce we need for the future.
Excellent. Well, on a lighter note, we want to know a little bit about what you think about Tijuana. So what surprised you most about Tijuana's cultural scene? And what do you think people should experience firsthand if they go to Tijuana?
Oh gosh, Tijuana is a fantastic city. I've just made some great friends here, and I think there's so much going on. It's just dynamic, right? There's so much back and forth. The food scene is phenomenal. I mean, you know, if you're a foodie,
Right.
you're going to love
Nirvana.
being here. Yeah, it's just incredible. And it's true all around Baja. So, you know, going down to Ensenada, the seafood there, going to Mexicali, comida china in Mexicali is incredible. Valle de Guadalupe, it's just a, you know, beautiful scene overall, and very open, very, you know, I think one of the things I really like about Tijuana, it's a very international city, right? You've got people that are here from all parts of Mexico. You got people that are here from the United States. You got people that are here from all around the world. I mean, we've met people that are Haitian or Colombian or people from parts of Africa that want to come to live and work in Mexico. And people talk about the American dream, and yeah, there's that. But the Mexican dream really is Tijuana in a lot of ways. If you want to come here and want to have success, this is a community that's open to that, and you can really thrive. And so I've seen a lot of people come and just make huge successes of their lives and contributed so much to the community. So I think it's really the people, it's really kind of the organizations that I've met and worked with, and seeing, in spite of a lot of challenges, that you can make a lot of progress and you can do a whole lot here. And it's thanks to that border relationship.
Chris, as a Tijuanense, I'm going to make a T-shirt that says "The Mexican Dream is Tijuana."
That's right.
We're copywriting that.
That's right.
And something that is important, and for example, I will love. It's like, I think it's like the dream of everyone to be in diplomacy, right? Just all the exotic places you can go. Then there's the drugs and the trafficking, and that I don't like, but all the other parts. So for our young people who are listening to that podcast, how do you get into diplomacy? Number one, and two, is it ever too late to being in public service?
It's never too late to contribute. And so public service can be done in a lot of ways. It can be done, sure, through working with a government entity. Absolutely. It can be volunteering in a civil society organization, a local NGO, starting one of your own. If you see a need in your community and there's no one else taking care of it, well, let's start a group and let's work on that. And so I think that's an important thing. One thing I think that a lot of people in Tijuana sometimes take for granted, they don't understand that the power that they have as transfronterizos. Y ser transfronterizo es un superpoder. You really understand both cultures. You really have this binational sense. You're bilingual. You sometimes it's Spanglish, pero ya hablamos Spanglish todo el tiempo aquí en la frontera. But it's really a superpower. And so I think that's something people take for granted. And when they leverage that and when they harness that ability, it really allows them to, I think, go further, do more, and understand more, and explain more to people in just a much more better way. And that helps increase our dynamism and increase our growth and innovation. And this is just such an exciting place to be.
So, Consul General, our podcast is called Border Masters. When you hear the expression Border Masters, what comes to mind?
Well, I think of all that dynamism that I talked about. I think about the innovation that we've got, when it comes to how do you create innovations like CBX, essentially one of a kind airport that can kind of cross the border, basically. How do you use new technologies so that we can have a secure but an effective and efficient border? I think those are tremendous. And I think about the people to people exchanges. I think about those ties that bring us together. In spite of linguistic differences, in spite of cultural differences, there's so much we share. And that makes our culture on both sides richer as a result. And so I think it's about mastering all those various skills and harnessing all those various opportunities that really enriches us and makes both of our countries much more interesting, much more vibrant, and just more wonderful places to live.
And are you a border master?
I work every day to be a border master. I love the region.
He's striving to become a border master.
He is. You're definitely a border master.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, and if listeners want to stay connected with the U.S. Consulate in Tijuana, where should they look for more information?
Well, we've got information on our webpage, social media. We've got Facebook. We've got the Twitter. What do they call it now? The X, right? Yeah, right. I think that's probably the easiest way, particularly as people are looking for. I think most hits that come to our website are probably looking for visa information. So we've got a lot of information on visas. Please go check that out. And if you have questions, contact us. Let us know how we can help.
Chris Teal, thank you for joining us and for sharing such thoughtful insight into the realities of the border.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It has been breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our listeners. Please listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and olasmedia.com. Write to us at info@bordermasterspodcast.com.
Hello, I'm Christopher Teal, the U.S. Consul General in Tijuana, and you're listening to Border Masters.
Here at Border Masters, we've launched a space we call Community Corner to thank our outreach partners. Our partners are binational organizations that advocate for better relations between our nations and are also a great inspiration for a podcast like this. This time, we're joined by Marlene Marroquin, Executive Director of the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, California chapter. Marlene, thank you so much for wanting to be a Border Masters partner. Tell us what the U.S.-Mexico Chamber does. What is its mission?
Thank you very much, Gustavo. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and I very much support all the efforts and the hard work that you've done over the years, and I had the pleasure to meet you for so many years already, so it's an honor to be here. The U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, it's the binational organization that's over 100 years old. We have 9 offices in the United States in the main cities, and we have 8 offices or chapters, as we call them, in Mexico. So our purpose is to promote international trade, cross-border transactions, cross-border trade between Mexico and the United States. We have many different members of many different industries like aerospace, electronic sectors, medical, import, export, financial services, accounting services, and professionals of all different types of things. And the purpose of our group is to be united and to help each other with information, to support, what they do, to promote their exports, and really to strengthen the international business relationships that we have. As you know, Mexico and the U.S. are the main trading partners. And for that, I think we advocate and we help our members bring in information every day through seminars and conferences and things that we do inside the chamber.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Now, for people who are listening to this podcast, how do they contact you?
You can contact me at marlene.marroquin@usmcoc.org. I'm going to spell that. Marlene, M-A-R-L-E-N, .marroquin, M-A-R-R-O-Q-U-I-N, @usmcoc.org. Or they can also call me. My phone number is +1 310 922 0206. And I'm delighted to talk to any of you and answer your questions and help you with the information that you need.
Thank you very much, Marlene, and thank you for being a partner of Border Masters Podcast.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. It's an honor to be here.
This episode of Border Masters fue creado por un Dream Team. JC Polk, nuestro production consultant that supports us con su experiencia y creatividad. Lina Álvarez, nuestra executive producer, siempre al mando. Ulises Bretón, nuestro creative director, bringing the vision to life. Alan González, el audio engineer, que nos hace sonar increíble. Y un agradecimiento especial a Chad Peace, founder y presidente, por ser la inspiración detrás de todo esto. Producido entre la sunny San Diego, California y la vibrant Tijuana, Baja California, Olas Media es parte de IBC Media Group. ¿Quieres más? Check out olasmedia.com para más episodios y el blog del show. Gracias por escucharnos. De parte de Gustavo y Monique, nos vemos la próxima vez.
Olas Media. The Otay Mesa Chamber of Commerce is the premier business development and advocacy organization in Otay Mesa, keeping you up to date on critical trade issues. The Chamber's events and programs are excellent for networking and staying informed about border and industry trends. You can find them at www.otaymesa.org.
Smart Border Coalition une a la comunidad transfronteriza para analizar los retos de la frontera y construir soluciones juntos. La organización reúne a líderes de ambos lados de la frontera para dialogar, entender los desafíos y convertir ideas en acción. Búscalos en www.smartbordercoalition.com.